You go.
Wonderful, thank you. Yeah, thanks. Hi, everybody. So I am Clare Evans, as Nick said. So I'm Corporate Services Manager at Tewkesbury Borough Council. So as hopefully you are signed up to, we're here to talk about our process improvement at Tewkesbury. So what we're up to in terms of improving and transforming our processes. Just a bit of background. I know I'm always quite interested in terms of structure and how things are set up at different organisations. So I am the operational manager for transformation, our transformation team, and that sits alongside my other services. So I've also got customer services, communications and design, and corporate services. And when I say corporate services, I mean things such as strategic plan development, performance, and FOIs and complaints policies and things like that. So structurally, that's how we are set up at Tewkesbury. In terms of the session today, I will be covering basically a range of different examples of where we've been able to introduce some real improvement in terms of our processes, and hopefully you'll find it interesting. As I said, I've got the guys on the call as well that will hopefully be able to answer quite a wide range of questions. We've split it into internal and external, but it doesn't really matter. They're just examples really of where we've done some nice process improvement work more recently. Before I go into the detail, just a bit about Tewkesbury Borough Council, in case it's helpful. I don't know if everybody knows where we are. So we are right at the top of Gloucestershire, so top of the southwest. We're quite a small, relatively small district council, but actually we are one of the fastest growing in the country, and that was confirmed in the census. We're in the top 10 nationally for growth, and as everybody will know, with that growth comes a huge amount of growth in terms of demand on our services. And I think actually that's what makes transformation and process awareness and process improvement even more important. And I think even though we're small, I think we are quite a good example in terms of local government as to where we're using process improvement, process mapping and low-code technology to have a really big impact on how we can effectively reshape local government services and how we deliver them. And so that's exactly what my transformation team has been set up to do. So the processes that I'm going to cover today are pretty much largely, the transformation of them has largely been led by our in-house transformation team. So this is a team that's relatively new, but it brings together a range of unique specialist and technical skills, so both digital and project management skills all sitting under one team. What's particularly special and what makes it particularly successful, I think, is that we are very empowered as a team to drive change through new, creative and experimental ways. I firmly believe, and I know our management team firmly believes, that if we want to be helping to contribute to reshaping the local government digital future, then we need to be given a safe and supportive environment to do that. And I do feel really lucky at Tewkesbury that we have got exactly that. So the transformation team, as you can see on the left of the slide, that list of posts there, it was originally set up on a fixed term basis for 2 years. And with quite a clear remit to basically push forward our improvement projects. We had quite a clear first year priority, which was to replace our digital platform. And looking back, that's massive and a really big challenge for a new team, especially one, we were in the middle of the pandemic. We hadn't worked together in person. We were doing it all remotely. But nevertheless, in the 6 months that we worked on it, we transferred all of our processes from our old digital platform onto our new one. And with each process, we mapped it out, we improved it and shaped it with the customer at the heart of it. And I think that's just quite a good example of how, as a team, process improvement and process awareness has been right at the heart of what we do from the very beginning. Pleased to say that after 12 months and after that work we did on the digital platform, our impact was recognised quite quickly by leadership and by councillors, and they invested some more money from reserves into the team. So we acted quickly. We kind of seized that opportunity because they don't often come along, do they? And we added some further roles into the team on a fixed term basis. So as you can see on the structure chart, we've also now got a junior developer, a user experience specialist, a web developer and a project support officer. So we've expanded since we started, but we've also been added to the council's permanent structure. which is fantastic news, and I think really highlights just how committed Tewkesbury and its leadership team is in terms of transformation. I know I've touched on this before in previous panel sessions with you, Nick, but a huge part of our success I contribute to the investment that we put into engaging particularly counsellors in-house with staff. I think that has a huge role to play in the success and the support that we get across the organisation. We do that in a number of ways. So we've got internal newsletters that promote the team and the impact that we're having. We go along to team meetings. We have staff briefings and things like that, and we really encourage that kind of open door. Come and chat to us. Let us know your ideas approach. And the way that the team works is quite different to other teams in the council. It's very agile. It's quite a flexible approach. So, for example, the digital and the kind of business analysts meet 3 times a week for 15 minutes, and they look at any priorities, look at what workload everybody's got, any support that might be needed, anything that might need to be reallocated. And that really helps us not only to manage our priorities, but for any smaller projects that might come in that we're not expecting. It's been a really successful approach for us so far. So it will be no surprise, I'm sure. We use Engage process to help us with our work around process improvement. There is loads that we like about Engage. It's, for us, a really fundamental part of our transformation work. We use it as a building block, really, to encourage teams to actually start thinking about process. We often go along to teams and they just haven't thought about what exactly it is that they do, what their process means, and why it's actually a very critical part for our transformation. The visual element of the process mapping is really important to us. We use that as a way of collaborating with the team and getting them involved. The simple icons that are used. So you can really see where a step is like the manual, or where we're going to make it a bit more digital, and where there are breaks in the process. We also really like the analytics that you can get. So, you can really look at the impact that a change in a process will have, be that in time spent or in cost. And just, a really helpful way of highlighting the impact of process improvement work. So this is testament really to how much we enjoy using Engage, because we've actually used it to document our approach in terms of managing a project in the transformation team. So for us, and you probably, I don't know how well you can see on the screen, and I won't go in detail, but as a high level overview, the way that we approach our transformation and our process improvement work is that, first of all, we, and when I say we, I mean a program officer from the team and the business analyst or the user experience will meet with the service, and together they will map out the as-is process using Engage. That step in itself is normally really revealing. The teams are quite shocked normally at just how much process there is in terms of what they're doing, and how much time is taken in repetitive tasks or bottlenecks. It's often a really interesting part of that stage of the project. We'll then bring in the development team to look at the to-be process, and we tend to use the kind of Moscow must-have, could-have, should-have, won't-haves to look at, how can we improve the process, and what elements can we introduce some digital transformation in it to improve things for not only the service, but more importantly the customer and their experience with us. I mentioned it before, but that collaboration with the team as we start to replace things, the more manual parts of the process with the digital ones, they can really see that in the process mapping that we do. And then once the process is agreed and it's passed over then to the technical team, so particularly if we're doing things on our digital platform, they will then start to build things in a test environment, and it will then get pushed out for testing, and we'll feedback, and we'll continue to develop depending on what feedback we have. So it's quite a new way of working for us as a council in terms of projects. It's quite iterative, whereas previously, everybody would be working towards an end goal, and it would be a perfectly designed system, and it would go live and everybody would be really happy. We're moving, to a more, we've got a viable product here, let's push it out, let's test it, let's see what feedback comes back and build it from there. That has taken some time, and we're still not there, I think, in some areas of the council. It is a step change, but where we have rolled things out, and hopefully you'll see in this presentation, it's made a significant difference, and has meant that the team can work on a much wider range of things at the same time. So that's us and our approach as a team. So first example is our HR. So we as a team have built a new HR portal. So this was one of the first big internal digital projects that we tackled, but is a really good example, I think, of showing just how much the change of a process that affects everybody has on their day-to-day lives. So you can see on the screen that when it came to annual leave, the as is, it was a fairly simple process, but actually that process mapping and understanding that process was absolutely critical to identifying where improvements needed to be made. So that the project team worked together to look at, well, what is the current process, what's happening at the minute, and highlighted some of the real inefficiencies that were there. So for example, each team within the council, when they were requesting leave, it was very manual. Everyone had a different way of recording leave. Some people used paper forms, some people used spreadsheets, some people used Outlook, and there was just, there was no consistency, and the HR team had no overview, and it was a real struggle for them to access any of the information. When it came to timesheets, it was pretty much a similar story. They were all stored on personal drives. It wasn't accessible, and there was actually no assurance that they were being used appropriately. And then when it came to the manager's role in all of those, annual leave and timesheets, they had such a lot of work in terms of the different ways in which it was managed to keep up with it. The process was fundamentally flawed, really. So once those issues were identified as part of mapping out the as-is process, they started to look at, well, what do we want from an ideal process? And so we did that using the must-have, should-have, could-haves. And you can see on the screenshot that the process remained very straightforward, but it was replaced with some automation and some digital options. And that led to the launch of what is our My HR portal. And it has, to be fair, completely transformed our approach to leave requests and logging timesheets. We've built a really user-friendly and very intuitive system. So it automatically populates periods of annual leave and sickness onto their timesheet. And since its launch, everybody's using it. So everybody across the organisation is now using this approach, and it's brought across immediate consistency. The digital timesheet means that staff can record their time, and then that automatically calculates any credit or debit that's occurred, and then managers are automatically notified if somebody's gone over or under their required hours. So from a management point of view, there's very little they have to do. It's all automatically done for them. The way the timesheet's been designed, it's made it much easier for staff to record their hours, and there's a note section, so if there's any anomalies, they can jot it down, and you'd have to remember it, and if there are any questions raised, they've got it there logged. The automated alerts means, managers aren't having to go in and check individual timesheets across different options, whether it was email, paper-based or whatever. It's all in one place. There's dashboards for them to be able to see different bits of information. It really has made the whole thing so much more straightforward for everybody. And when it comes to annual leave, those requests are now sent to managers automatically with requests, and it deducts it automatically as well from their total allowance. So there's no working out that needs to be done. It's all done in the system, and it just makes it much easier for officers and managers to track. So as part of that process mapping and being aware of the different processes involved in these two things, we've been able to meet the needs of the different users. So whether that's individual officers or managers or the HR or finance team, it's had a huge impact, and the feedback we're getting from staff is really, really positive. And actually this in itself has sparked a huge interest in digital transformation across the organisation, because it's raised awareness of how, transforming a process and the impact that can have is just massive. So you can see on the screen now, that's just an example of somebody, it's Lynn's timesheet, and actually the actual HR portal is there. You can see it's split down into timesheets, leave requests. We've also done a team calendar, so you can see when the rest of your team's on leave, whether there's any clashes. It was launched in October. We tested it with a small team of officers, and that proved to be absolutely invaluable. And yeah, it's just a really nice success story for us, and one that we are going to be continuing to build on. So next year we're looking at sickness absence, and that's already started. The work's already started, and we're looking at mapping that process out as is, and what we actually want from a to be. And it's the same sort of story in terms of automating where we can, and building in the policy requirements into the system. So hopefully I can come back at a later date and update you on that. So data requests is another one where we've had some real improvements from the process improvement work that we've done. This was an area of work that had a significant impact on a single officer. It was massive, and actually something that I'm sure other councils on here are aware. It seems to be growing rapidly. So over 12 months, the requests were over 600% for our single officer in terms of data requests. So we knew that there was a lot of pressure there for the officer, but actually the process itself wasn't as streamlined as it could be. So as a team, we looked to map it out. And as we were doing that, it was quite clear that actually it was really manual. We were using emails and Outlook calendars for reminders. Incorrect and incomplete information was being submitted, and that actually led then to wasted officer time because they were chasing around looking for information, not knowing where it was. And we just didn't have a system that was managing the end-to-end process, basically. So when we then started to look at the to be, we could almost straight away make some significant changes to this process. So you can see on the screen there that we've highlighted on the step around identity checks. This was done quite late in the as-is process. I think it's in step 12. And what that meant was we were doing identity checks when all of the other work around data requests had been delivered, but what was happening was that actually that request was never completed, and so that work that was carried out prior to it was almost a complete waste of time. So immediately we brought that step further forward in the process, so it's done up front, and then once we've received that from the customer, we carry on with the rest of the work. But other improvements we were able to bring in were around structured online forms, making sure that we get all of that information in a structured way at the time of the request. We've built a back office system that managed the whole process, including automated reminders for anybody involved in the data request, as well as kind of structuring the forms. And that's actually resulted in a 20% reduction in the processing time for us. So yeah, this is just another really nice example of an internal process that's had a huge impact on that single officer, but equally everybody else that's involved in that process. Car share. So this is quite a nice example of where we've been able to add in this as a project, as a team, when it wasn't in any of our priorities, I suppose. So this was a request that came from our corporate leadership team, and it was as the cost of living crisis was developing, and also our need to start looking at our carbon footprint to help the environment and reduce traffic congestion. So it was an idea that came from a member of staff that went up to corporate leadership team, and they felt that it had legs. And so we as a team kind of recognized quite quickly that it was probably something that we could look at in terms of what processes needed and what could we do on our digital platform to help deliver it. We actually met with a national provider that could have given us a car share scheme, and the cost to join their network was around £12,000 for the year. So for us as a small district council, it's just not feasible. And so yeah, we committed to building our own in-house solution. So we used our business analyst, members of the business transformation team, including our apprentice, and the carbon reduction manager, to scope out what exactly we would need from such a system, and actually the speed in which we're able to use Engage and build on our low code platform. We built the system in a week. And it was actually built by our apprentice. And so now staff can go on and find a match by postcode. So the red pins on the map show where people have signed up, and they can develop their own personal arrangements in terms of lift shares. So just a really nice example of actually it doesn't have to be a huge team thing to build in process improvements or even new nice processes. It can happen really quite quickly. And I've got more examples, but I didn't have time in this presentation, but happy to talk about those as part of the discussion afterwards, if interested. So this is our planning application tracker. This is quite a nice example of where we're looking at improving our processes for our customers. So we are doing a wider DM review, so a planning review, and as part of that, we're looking at all of the processes across the service. And we knew as part of that work that with current demand, a planning application tracker, so a way of customers being able to track their planning applications would be really helpful. The idea actually came from members of the planning support team, which was really nice. So they're kind of already thinking about ways in which we can use digital options to improve the customer journey. And so we started to map out exactly what the process is when registering and dealing with a planning application and what's the customer's experience is there. So as part of that work, we identified that actually 70% of the calls that come into our planning team are asking for an update on a planning application. So, you know, what stage is it at? Has it reached the stage it's meant to be at? Who's my officer? What does this stage mean? So there was a huge number of repeat calls that we knew we could give some structure to. We also knew that there is actually no proactive communication that happens from us to our customers as part of the planning application process. So they're left in the dark for quite a lot of it. So in already a quite complex process, if you've not done planning before as a customer, it's a bit of a dark art and you have to understand all the terminology. So we knew there was some simplification that we could build into a system. And also we wanted to actually meet customer expectation. It's one of those areas that actually lots of people, and it's one of the main reasons people know about local government organisations is because of the planning service. But we're not really meeting their expectations as we do in other areas. So we looked to build our planning application tracker, which was really, as it was suggested to us, was built on the idea of a Domino's pizza tracker. So you get alerted when it moves to each stage of the process. So we've built it. We were actually given some DLUC funding as part of the Pathfinder scheme that they ran. So our new tracker now allows customers to do exactly that. They can track the progress of their planning application online. It complements the existing public access system that you might know about, but it gives the information in a much clearer and easier way, and they can view it in real time. So we're pulling information from our uniform system into the tracker, so everything's live. And customers can subscribe, as you can see on the screen. They can subscribe for updates on specific applications, and then they get either a text or an email alert once it's moved on. And we've used this as a way of simplifying the process for our customers, but also giving them as much plain English information about each stage as well. It's not quite live yet. It will be going live next month. So we've done some testing. We've demoed it with our planning agents and developers forum, and it was really well received. So we're looking forward to that one, because I know planning is a difficult one, and there's a lot that can be transformed in terms of the wider service area. So it's a nice place for us to have started. Excuse me. I'm just going to take a drink because I've been talking for ages. But land charges, right? So land charges was another one that sits in our development management team. A really manual process. Huge pressure on a single officer, and things were easily being missed. Very email based, very difficult to keep track of the volume of inquiries that were coming through and the status of each case. So again, as we do, as I've said, with all of our projects, we met with the officer, we used our project manager and our business analyst to map out the as-is. What are the problems in that service in terms of its process? And actually, this is a really nice example. So what you can see on the screen there is kind of some... Oh, can everybody hear that? Can you still hear me? Yes, I think you can. Yeah. Okay, thank you. And again. I dropped my mic. Yes, thank you. So this is a nice example of where, as I was talking about before, that impact that you get to see on Engage. This is a process that's gone down from 48 steps down to 23. And actually each case is now going to take around 15 minutes to complete rather than the hour plus that it was taking. So you can see quite clearly there where we've got positive impact. And that really helps when we're showcasing it, particularly to leadership team or councillors. So just, you know, streamlining and improving that process and the impact it has been a really nice example in land charges. And then finally, I knew this would happen, my throat's going. I just wanted to touch on a project that's quite a nice example of where we've got an internal process going on, but actually the internal process impacts our partners and their processes as well. So you may, and I'm sure you are all aware of the food voucher scheme that councils are now required to process. And we've done this a few times now, and I think government's kind of they're aware of just how well we are wow, how good local councils are at administering such schemes. But after the second one, I think we reviewed it internally because there were areas that we knew we needed to streamline, basically. And we actually, as part of reviewing the process, decided to think about using some RPA, some robotic process automation, to assist with the county council and how they run the scheme. So if you don't know, the scheme itself is basically providing vulnerable residents with a one-off food voucher, and you kind of identify which residents are eligible up front. And so what we've done is we've automated the verification process. We've created a system that allows residents to apply for their voucher online, which the vast majority of them now do, and that frees up our customer services team to deal with those customers that can't do that. And particularly, you know, when we're looking at that process and introducing RPA, what that's been able to do is automate the redeeming process, and so residents can receive their vouchers so much more quickly. Previously, it was done by individual teams, and the process was taking quite a long time, involving the printing and posting of letters, and it was taking up my transformation team's time as well in terms of that, and it was really frustrating. So the work that the team's done on removing that problem and identifying that issue in the process has been absolutely brilliant. So we've actually issued over 650 vouchers using RPA now, and the impact on officer time has been reduced by 98%. So that, I think, not only is it a nice example of where we've worked with partners and to help them with their process, but it's identifying quite quickly where streamlines or changes to quite new processes even can have a big impact. So it's just that continual improvement and that continual checking of what we're doing, and are there changes that could help us as a team, but equally, you know, our customers, particularly when they're vulnerable and in need of such important vouchers. Very, very finally, I just wanted to touch on what we've got coming up. It's never a quiet time for my transformation team. As I mentioned before, we have a real focus on development management, so we're really excited about this. We're going to be focusing on improving performance, and helping them to see their performance using Power BI, and also their customer experience. We're going to be looking at how can we better improve the customer's experience in the planning application process, and the planning application portal will help with that, but we've got some other ideas around a customer contact portal, and managing their contact with us, and we're also going to be doing some work on licensing as well, looking at building a portal, but also focusing on taxi drivers and licenses, so TENs, and we'll be using Engage, obviously, looking at the as-is and to-bes, and work's already started on it. So we have got a really busy time coming up. But that's it from me. That's a bit of a whistle-stop tour talking through all of that, and my voice is going to go, so hopefully my team can help answer any questions, but hopefully that was